Okay.
So today I'm chatting to Kerstin Martin, who is a Squarespace web designer and trainer, and she resonates with type 9 on the Enneagram. So welcome, Kerstin. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this. I love the Enneagram. So
I wonder if we can start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and what is it about the type 9 that you most resonate with?
So I was introduced to the Enneagram about 10 years ago through a therapist, actually. And he had me do this test. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. It was just like a personality test. And I was going through it. I thought, wow, a lot of this kind of, resonates. And then he told me, yeah, you're an Enneagram type 9. And I thought, okay, what does that mean? So I've been aware of like Myers-Briggs and some of these other personality type testing, but I had never heard of the Enneagram before. So he just gave me like a little leaflet, which explained a bit more about the type 9. And it was so eye-opening. I thought, oh my God, that is just me to a T, And then I bought the books. There weren't actually that many books on it at the time. That might have changed in the last 10 years. But back then I could only find like 3, I think. And so there really wasn't that much around. And online there wasn't, there was already the Enneagram Institute online, but that was about it. And so the type 9 is called the Peacemaker or the Mediator, and that is totally me. And because I like my peace, and I often am in situations where I end up mediating between people, if there's a conflict. And I also hate conflict to start with, it's very typical too. So I really, at the time, that's why I was seeing a therapist, I was going through some difficult times, and understanding more about myself, I guess, through the Enneagram really kind of changed how I looked at certain things. And I would say over the last 10 years, whenever I feel a little lost, I do actually like to come back to that and think, oh, hey, this is typical type 9 behavior, or, so what can I do about that?
And what do you mean typical type 9 behavior? So what do you notice showing?
So, well, I mean, one of the, negative things about the type 9, I don't know, I don't like calling it negative. I don't know, what do you call it professionally? What do you call the strong, like when you are, there is actually a phrase for that, isn't there, in the Enneagram? When you are like high.
Yeah, sometimes we refer to it just as watch outs or blind spots.
Right, okay. Well, I suppose the blind spot about the type 9 is like inertia, apathy, and that is certainly something that kind of has been with me most of my life, where I just have a really hard time just getting up, doing something, and I just feel like, I'm almost like paralyzed sometimes in getting going, and doing something. And and I always felt really bad about that. I always thought, oh, I'm just lazy. And so there was a lot of guilt, a lot of shame surrounding this. And when I, learned more about the type 9, that is actually a very typical way of being for the type 9. And a lot of it has to do with, we can sometimes stick our head in the sand about situations, and we, because we like things to be peaceful and harmonious, and we tend to avoid conflict and difficult situations. And, so that is all a part of that. And so now when I catch myself doing this, I find the only antidote is action.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, is for me at least, is actually getting out of my head and just doing something. And usually that means physical action, like going for a walk, cleaning the house, not something that involves sitting in front of the computer or staring at the television. And
when you say get out of your head, what's going on in your head at that time? What's the kind of story that's playing over and over there?
I think it's often when I'm stuck in a thought pattern, and it can be anything, you know, related to my business or to something personal life, or sometimes it's not even that I have so much going on in my head. It's just a general sense of inertia, you know, just a general sense of like numbness almost. And where I really like can think back into that. And I don't actually think that much, because I kind of distract myself, like with browsing on my phone or watching a TV show, you know, and then I kind of notice though in my body, I'm not feeling that great, you know, I'm feeling kind of tired, I'm feeling something is off. And that's when I catch myself and I think, you know what, gotta get out, because I am in my head at that point, even if I distract myself.
You know, and it's almost like you're in your head, but it's not a conscious thinking, it's almost a conscious not thinking.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, which is kind of what inertia is, you know, and you're not always like aware of it as such, you know, in the moment, you know, but I nowadays I can catch it much quicker. And then I know, okay, I gotta, because I can get lost in stuff, you know, for hours, and I just notice it doesn't feel good, you know, and that's when I know I have to get up and I have to do something.
And you mentioned that initially you thought it was a bit of laziness, and I think that's a common misconception with type 9s, that, you know, they refer to the sloth, and they, you know, people believe that means lazy, but so many type 9s are far from lazy. So how would you describe the difference between lazy and inertia? What does inertia actually feel like? What's behind it?
That's a good question. I never okay, I will try, and I don't know, I never really try to describe what it actually feels like, you know. I think it's more like a numbness, you know, like it's kind of like someone puts a hood over your face, and you're just kind of feeling a little like you don't really take in all the senses around you. And, you know, I think laziness, I don't really know. I don't really know if anyone is actually intentionally lazy, to be honest, you know, but I think there's always something deeper behind it. If someone just kind of sits around and doesn't do something, you know, often it's depression and who knows, you know. But I remember when I was little, when I was a kid, my grandparents used to sometimes say to me that I was lazy, because when we would have, for instance, family gatherings, I would not always help, you know, because all my cousins would be in the kitchen cleaning and stuff, and I just was enjoying the harmony of the meeting. I was enjoying the peacefulness, you know, and the company, and I really kind of savored that moment. And so, you know, I didn't do something, you know, and but they also said that in relation to like homework, and because I didn't always, you know, do what they thought I should do, you know, and I probably didn't, you know, I just kind of did what I needed to do, and then I just went back into my bubble. It's kind of like, it's almost like a bubble. That's probably a good way of describing it, you know, the inertia. It's kind of like your little peaceful little bubble that you're in.
So it's a peaceful bubble where you almost said you feel maybe a little bit numbed out. What's the benefit of that?
The benefit, I guess, for type 9 is that you avoid conflict that way, because I think we really do not like conflict, and we really do not like, I think if I remember correctly, you know, one of our biggest fears is like loss and separation. And if we are in our little bubble, we feel a little bit peaceful, and we feel like things can't really touch us, you know.
Okay, so it keeps
if that makes sense.
It does. I can feel the sense of almost perceived safety, or perceived peace, for sure.
Yeah, and but it's an illusion, that's the thing. It is actually an illusion. And I think the type 9 is quite good at convincing themselves that it's kind of real, but it's not really, and I've learned that over the years and decades,
How have you learned that? In what way were you forced to look at it differently?
Well, because of course, in life you cannot avoid difficult situations. And so I had to learn that I had to deal with stuff. I couldn't just put my head in the sand. And so sometimes I probably, learned it harder than other people, because I resisted it so much, and I would resist the hard things, and because they would, propel me out of my little peaceful bubble. And so I, but I did learn that, and I did learn that actually, through taking action, like conscious action, I feel so much better and so much freer actually. And so, and I think nowadays, I can still absolutely retreat into my little bubble, and when things get stressful, but I'm a lot better now at confronting difficult situations or confronting maybe difficult people and dealing with it, being more assertive. That is something that I really had to learn, because I never used to be very assertive, and I think that's part of it as well. And so now I don't really shy away from conflict so much anymore. And
how has it helped you?
It's actually helped me tremendously in my business. And because I started my own business almost 4 years ago, and before that, for most of my life, I kind of just doodled along, kind of let me see where things take me and where it goes. And if something would be too difficult professionally, I just leave, find a different job. And it was great in many respects. I've had great jobs, I've met great people and had a lot of adventures. So I actually have no regrets, but I always felt a little lost. So when I started my own business, I realized, okay, I have to actually take more responsibility here and more accountability. And when I have not often, but when I've had like a difficult client, for instance, and actually, to be honest, that's only happened once. I, rather than bury my head in the sand, which is what I like to do, oh yeah, okay, if that's how you want to be, just go and leave and whatever, and I'm out of here. And I don't do that. I actually sit down, I look at the situation, and I look at my position in it, because that's something I really had to learn, is to stand up for myself and for my position, for my values. And then I looked at, okay, how can I do this, but peacefully and without like being over emotional. And it turned the situation totally around, and ended up with a happy client, and just by working through it and accepting my responsibility in the situation as well,
It's a great lesson for nines, because as with any Enneagram type, the thing that we are trying to avoid ends up almost self-perpetuating and getting even worse. So in trying to avoid conflict, it actually makes the situation worse. So to learn a way of navigating through that doesn't mean you lose that sense of nineness that is, so good at seeing different sides of the story.
Yeah.
And listening to different perspectives and keeping the peace. It doesn't mean we lose that part, but we just bring it in a different aspect that empowers you in a different way.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, and I think it's actually interesting what you say about the 9 sees all sides of a situation or of an argument, because I do that all the time. And sometimes it drives my husband crazy, because he will voice an opinion on something. And even if I agree with him, I will immediately say the opposite. Oh, but look at the other side, or look at where they might come from. And he's like, why do you have to do this? Why can you not just agree with me and let me be in my like anger about a situation and just, support me in where I am. And I'm like, well, I do, but I cannot help it. I automatically, see the other side. I mean, even like an extreme example, even a terrorist, I can actually understand why they might do what they do, and I can totally be in that place, Doesn't mean I agree with it, but I can automatically put on the other person's shoe, and
that's the nine, isn't it?
Sorry?
Completely the gift of the nine, which is why when they're in balance, they make such good negotiators, mediators, facilitators, because they're able to bring that fairness and balance by seeing all sides of the situation.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I have actually, and it's something I'm embracing now, and that I feel, and I can certainly also feel how it benefits my business, because I think that is partly why I'm successful as a web designer, because when I talk to my clients, I totally understand where they're coming from. I can feel what they need, and then I can translate that, into a website. Or when I, with the people who learn from me, it's definitely something that I like to. What's the word I'm looking for? I like to take advantage of and make the best out of it. And I can't find the word. There's a word I'm looking for, and I cannot find it. But it's I find actually having my own business, allows me to really hone my the positive traits of the type 9, and to for the benefit of my clients, of my students, and of my business. And I think that's why generally, people often say, oh, you're so nice and relaxed and chilled out, and I am, I'm generally pretty easygoing and a positive person, and I think it's generally why I rarely actually do have really bad conflict in my business, because that's the approach that I take, and I think it kind of rubs off on people as well.
That makes so much sense, because the way you're describing your process, I can feel the benefit of working with someone who's listening to my needs and asking my perspective and gathering all the information. And absolutely, you can see how putting all that effort and perspective in up front can only make it work well down the track. And actually, the end result is avoiding the conflict that you're wanting to avoid.
Yeah. But at the same time, and that's actually the interesting thing, so I do that, but I also, and that's what I had to learn, is take, make my own stand, stand up. For instance, in design, I have certain ideas or, certain preferences, how I like to design. And I do occasionally have clients who want things that it's like, no, I cannot do that. So on one hand, I really want to please them, of course, and I understand where they're coming from. But on the other hand, I have a certain integrity when it comes to my designs. I have a certain style, and that's often why people come to me, because they like that particular style. And that is what I've really learned over the last 4 years, is to stand up for that too, and to say to my client, you know what? I understand why you want this particular thing. Here is where I'm coming from. Here is why in design, I think we should do this a little differently. And, and that actually, I have to say that's worked out really well. And I think that is partly of this whole thing about, being awake and outside the bubble and taking a stand, for my position, and clients actually appreciate that. They do appreciate that.
you have the awareness to then be able to realize the benefits of bringing your wants and needs to the table. And also, I suppose, realizing that whilst it feels like it's avoiding conflict, leading through consensus actually doesn't work. It creates shambles. And it's not
absolutely
the best end result for your client, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can hear the benefit for your clients when you talk about having maybe woken up to some of your 9 tendencies, are more able to stand up for what you believe, more able to be present in the moment, more willing to engage in healthy conflict. How does it affect your personal relationships?
Generally, actually, well, I mean, I think because I do understand people quite well, I can look past certain things. So I actually tend to have quite deep relationships, because I get to a level with my friends or my partner, that allows me to form that deeper connection, and oftentimes also I am the mediator, like with friends, or if I have, like if I have a friend and her partner, I had that a couple of times, where they, I lived with them at the time, and they were constantly arguing, and then they would call me, and and we would kind of walk through it, and and diffuse the situation. And so I think one thing I had to be careful, though. I mean, I remember that certainly when I was younger, people often thought I was a little aloof, and that's kind of a typical type 9 thing too, I learned, and I don't mean to be, but that's kind of when I'm in my little bubble, and then it comes across as aloofness, and but generally, I think because, I mean, I've always had jobs where I work with people, and because I like people, I love people, and I'm definitely a people person. I'm very interested in people, and that has allowed me in my private life to meet some very interesting people and to form some very wonderful and deep friendships.
Amazing. I've got one more question for you, Kerstin, and that is, for people who aren't particularly familiar with type 9s, what would you say is the one thing you really would like them to understand about 9s that maybe they don't see on the surface?
I think it would probably be, that don't be too aggressive, because we don't like that, and understand that ultimately we like harmony, and peacefulness. So even if there is a conflict, don't come at me with like aggression and lots of swearing and stuff like that, and understand that I will try and understand you, and I probably can understand you and your anger and where you're coming from. But please understand that, being very aggressive doesn't work with me. Okay. And that I'm happy to talk about stuff, and let's just, try and be peaceful about it.
Thank you, Kerstin.